6 months had passed since the invasion began. The war had settled into a bloody stalemate. The Vraxians controlled the major cities during the day, but at night those same cities belonged to the human resistance. Every street corner was a potential ambush. Every building could hide fighters. The aliens were losing soldiers daily, and morale was collapsing. Colonel Doyen stood in a command center hidden deep in the mountains of Korea. He had been promoted 3 times since the war started, not because he wanted rank, but because too many officers above him had died. Now he commanded what remained of Earth's organized military forces, thousands of soldiers hidden in bases around the world, coordinating with resistance cells in every occupied city. "We've been gathering intelligence for 6 months," Doyen told his officers. "We know their patrol patterns, their supply routes, their communication frequencies. We know which of their commanders are competent and which are fools. We know everything about them. Now it's time to use that knowledge." He pulled up a map of Earth covered in red markers. Each marker represented a Vraxian position. Operation Wildfire begins in 48 hours. Every resistance cell, every military unit, every fighter on this planet attacks at the same time. We hit them everywhere at once. They won't know where to send reinforcements because they'll need reinforcements everywhere. Major Mina worked in a bunker on the opposite side of the world, but she was essential to the operation. Over the months, she had studied every aspect of Vraxian military organization. She had interviewed prisoners, analyzed their tactics, and found their greatest weakness. "They're too centralized," she explained to her team. "Every decision flows through their command structure. Squad leaders can't make independent choices. They wait for orders from above. If we disrupt their communication network, their entire military becomes paralyzed." "Can we disrupt it?" an officer asked. "Engineer Junho thinks so. He's been working on it for 3 months." Junho had been a video game programmer before the war. Now he was humanity's best hope for hacking alien technology. He sat in front of multiple screens, each showing captured Vraxian equipment. Beside him was a Vraxian communication device they had taken from a destroyed command post. "Their encryption is complex," Junho admitted, "but it's old. They haven't updated their security protocols in decades because nobody has ever tried to hack them before. That's their mistake." He typed commands into his computer, watching as his custom program attacked the alien network. "I can't break their encryption, but I can jam their entire communication system. For about 3 hours, maybe 4, they won't be able to talk to each other. No orders, no coordination, nothing." 3 hours is enough," Doyen said when he heard the news. "We hit them hard during those 3 hours and don't stop until they break." The day of Operation Wildfire arrived. At precisely midnight Greenwich Mean Time, Junho activated his jamming program. Across Earth in every occupied city, Vraxian communication devices went silent. Commanders tried to contact their units and got only static. Soldiers waited for orders that never came. Then the humans attacked. In Seoul, Lieutenant Jiwon led 200 fighters out of the tunnels. They hit 3 Vraxian positions simultaneously, using the weapons and tactics they had perfected over months of fighting. The aliens tried to call for support, but their radios were dead. They fought alone and died alone. In Tokyo, Hana's teams used their drones to attack supply lines and ammunition depots. Without communication, the Vraxian forces couldn't coordinate their defenses. Each position fell one by one. Around the world, the story was the same. Human forces, both military and civilian, struck at every Vraxian position. The aliens had superior weapons and armor, but they were isolated and confused. Their training had never prepared them for this kind of coordinated chaos. Colonel Doyen watched the reports flood in. "We're winning. Keep the pressure on. Don't let them recover." In orbit, Commander Vorath realized what was happening when his communication with ground forces cut out. He tried everything to restore contact, but something was jamming the entire network. For 3 hours, he was blind, unable to command his forces or even know what was happening on the surface. When communication finally returned, the damage reports were catastrophic. 30% of his ground forces were dead or captured. Dozens of command posts had been destroyed. More importantly, they had captured his second-in-command, General Thrax, who had been inspecting a forward base when the attack began. Vorath stared at the reports in disbelief. How did they do this?" "They learned, Commander," his tactical officer said quietly. "They learned everything about us and we learned nothing about them. We treated them like every other primitive species we've conquered. But they're not like the others. They adapt. They learn. They never stop fighting. Agent Sora entered the interrogation room where General Thrax sat in chains. She had been an intelligence officer before the war, specializing in psychological warfare. Now she had the second highest ranking Vraxian officer as her prisoner. "You've lost this war," Sora told him calmly. "You just don't know it yet." Thrax laughed bitterly. "We have thousands of soldiers, orbital superiority, and the resources of an empire. You have nothing." "We have something you don't," Sora replied. "We have a reason to fight. This is our home. Every human on this planet would rather die than surrender. Can you say the same about your soldiers?" Thrax said nothing. "Tell me about the Vraxian Empire," Sora continued. "Tell me about the politics, the factions, the people who oppose this war." "There are no people who oppose the war. The Empire is united," Sora smiled. "You hesitated before you said that, which means it's a lie." She pulled out a tablet and showed him footage of the recent battles. "Your soldiers are dying for what? To conquer a planet that will never stop fighting? How many more will die before your leaders admit this was a mistake?" Over the next few days, Thrax talked. Not because Sora tortured him, but because he was tired. Tired of the war, tired of the lies, tired of sending soldiers to die for a conquest that seemed increasingly impossible. He told her about the political divisions in the Vraxian Empire, about the faction that thought the Earth campaign was a waste of resources, about the growing opposition to Commander Vorath's leadership. "This information is valuable," Sora reported to Colonel Doyen. "The Vraxian Empire isn't as unified as they appear. There are people back on their homeworld who want this war to end. Can we use that?" Doyen asked. "Maybe. If we can make this war costly enough, the political pressure might force them to withdraw. We just need to keep fighting, keep making them bleed." Dr. Sunho and his team made another breakthrough. By studying captured Vraxian equipment, they developed a weapon specifically designed to target alien biology. It used a sonic frequency that was harmless to humans but caused severe pain and disorientation in Vraxians. The weapon wasn't lethal, but it was effective. "This changes everything," Sunho explained to the military commanders. "We can disable their soldiers without killing them. That means we can capture more prisoners, gather more intelligence, and put more pressure on their medical resources." The new sonic weapon spread quickly through resistance cells. Suddenly, every engagement ended with captured Vraxian soldiers instead of dead ones. The aliens' casualty lists grew, and so did their prisoner counts. Back on the Vraxian homeworld, families started asking questions about sons and daughters captured on Earth. Commander Vorath felt the walls closing in. His ground forces were demoralized. His communication network had been compromised. His second-in-command was a prisoner, and now he was receiving messages from the Vraxian High Command, questioning his leadership and demanding better results. "We need reinforcements," Vorath told his remaining officers. "Massive reinforcements. Enough to overwhelm the humans completely." "The High Command has denied your request," an officer replied. "They say too many resources are already committed to Earth. They want you to win with what you have." "That's impossible. The humans are too well prepared, too organized. They know everything about us." "Then perhaps," the officer said carefully, "we should consider withdrawal." Vorath glared at him. "We are Vraxians. We do not retreat." But in his heart, Vorath knew the truth. Earth was different. The humans were different. And for the first time in his long military career, he wasn't sure he could win. On Earth, the humans sensed the shift. The Vraxians were on the defensive now, reacting instead of acting. The tide had turned. The war was far from over, but for the first time, victory seemed possible. The stars looked different that night. People across Earth gazed up at the sky, unaware that their lives were about to change forever. In a military base deep beneath Seoul, Major Hyun stared at his computer screen with tired eyes. The numbers didn't make sense. 300 objects were moving toward Earth, and they were moving fast. "Sir, we're getting readings from every observatory on the planet," Captain Mina said as she entered the room. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly as she handed him the report. "They'll be here in 3 weeks." Hyun read the report twice. "Alien ships. An invasion fleet." The words felt unreal, like something from a movie, but the data was clear. Humanity was not alone in the universe, and whoever was coming wasn't friendly. The Vraxian Empire had been conquering worlds for 200 years. Their military was powerful, their technology advanced, and their confidence absolute. Commander Vorath stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the blue planet on his screen. Earth, another primitive world to add to the Empire's collection. How long until we arrive? Vorath asked his officer. 20 days, Commander. Their technology is basic. They have no shields, no energy weapons, and no experience with space combat. This will be an easy victory. Vorath nodded. He had conquered 47 worlds. Earth would be number 48. The humans would surrender quickly, just like all the others. Some species fought for a few days, but they all surrendered in the end. It was always the same, but Vorath didn't know humans very well. Across Earth, governments met in emergency sessions. Some leaders wanted to surrender immediately. Others wanted to fight. The arguments went on for days while the alien fleet came closer. Major Hyun didn't wait for permission. He started preparing for war. We can't match their weapons, Mina told him as they studied the alien technology from long-range scans. Their ships are bigger, faster, and stronger than anything we have. Then we don't fight them the way they expect, Hyun replied. He pulled up a map of Earth's orbit. Look at all this junk floating around our planet. Old satellites, space stations, debris from 100 years of space exploration. What if we use it? Mina understood immediately. Turn our own trash into weapons. Exactly. They'll be looking for military threats. They won't expect us to throw everything we have at them, including the things that don't work anymore. Over the next 2 weeks, every space agency on Earth worked together for the first time in history. They attached rockets to old satellites. They filled decommissioned space stations with explosives. They even modified civilian spacecraft, turning tourist vessels into kamikaze drones. It wasn't elegant and it wasn't sophisticated, but it was all they had. The day the Vraxian fleet arrived, half the world was watching. The massive ships appeared in orbit, blocking out the stars. They were beautiful in a terrible way, sleek and deadly. The largest ship moved to the front, and a message broadcast across every communication channel on Earth. People of Earth, I am Commander Vorath of the Vraxian Empire. Your planet is now under our control. Surrender immediately and your lives will be spared. Resist and you will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to respond. In sole command, Hyun looked at his team. Are we ready? All systems are go, Mina confirmed. Every modified satellite, every drone, every piece of junk we could weaponize is in position. Then let's show them who they're dealing with. Hyun pressed a button. All units attack. The silence of space erupted into chaos. Old satellites suddenly fired their thrusters, ramming into Vraxian ships. Explosive-filled space stations detonated near the fleet. Modified civilian craft dove at the alien vessels, their pilots ejecting at the last second before impact. Nothing was coordinated in the traditional military sense. It was messy, desperate, and completely unexpected. On the Vraxian flagship, alarms blared. Commander, we're under attack. An officer shouted. From what? I don't see any warships. Vorath stared at his screen in confusion. The humans were throwing everything at them, military and civilian alike. Pieces of debris were exploding. Small craft were ramming his ships. It was insane. They're using their own orbital infrastructure as weapons. They're destroying their own satellites. Vorath had never seen anything like it. What species would sacrifice its own technology to fight back? It made no strategic sense. But it was working. 12 of his ships reported damage. Not serious damage, but damage nonetheless. This was supposed to be easy. Return fire, Vorath ordered. Destroy anything that moves. The Vraxian weapons lit up the sky. Earth's makeshift weapons stood no chance against the superior firepower. Within an hour, humanity's orbital defenses were gone. Every satellite, every space station, every modified spacecraft was destroyed. Earth was defenseless from space. But in sole command, Hyun was smiling. Why are you smiling? Mina asked. We just lost everything in orbit. Because now they think they've won, Hyun replied. They think we're finished. But we taught them something important today. What's that? That we're willing to sacrifice everything to fight back. They've never faced an enemy like that before. Hyun pulled up new tactical displays, and when they come down here, we're going to teach them a lot more. In orbit, Commander Vorath studied the damage reports. The battle had been won, but it left him uneasy. The humans had fought with a desperation he had never encountered. They had destroyed their own infrastructure just to hurt his fleet. What else were they capable of? Prepare ground forces, Vorath ordered. We're going down there to finish this quickly. His officers saluted and left to prepare the invasion. Vorath remained on the bridge, staring at the blue planet below. Something felt wrong. In all his conquests, he had never felt this sense of uncertainty. The humans should have surrendered. They should have begged for mercy. Instead, they had attacked. On Earth, people watched the sky and prepared for what came next. They had lost the battle in space, but the war was just beginning. Major Hyun coordinated with military forces around the world. Captain Mina worked with scientists to analyze the Vraxian technology they had observed during the battle. Every piece of information mattered now. The aliens were coming. They had superior weapons and technology, but they were about to learn that conquering Earth would be harder than they ever imagined. Because humanity had something the Vraxians didn't understand. They had the determination to fight for their home no matter the cost. The first battle was over. Earth had lost, but the real war was about to begin. 1 year after the invasion began, humanity was ready to take back the sky. Admiral Taeyang stood on the bridge of the Defiance, a ship that had been a luxury cruise liner 12 months ago. Now it was the flagship of Earth's makeshift space fleet, armed with reverse-engineered Vraxian weapons and human innovations that the aliens had never imagined. "Are all ships ready?" Taeyang asked his crew. Around him, men and women who had been civilians worked at stations they had learned to operate through desperation and determination. "All 37 vessels report ready." "Admiral," his communications officer replied. "They're waiting for your signal." 37 ships against the Vraxian orbital fleet. It should have been suicide. But these weren't normal ships, and this wasn't a normal battle. Every vessel in Earth's fleet had been modified with technology learned from captured equipment and human creativity. They had surprise on their side, and they had pilots who had nothing left to lose. Fighter pilot Yuna sat in her cockpit, checking her systems one last time. She had been flying commercial aircraft before the war, shuttling tourists between cities. Now she flew a modified military jet equipped with captured Vraxian weapons. Her squadron consisted of 20 pilots, all of them volunteers, all of them knowing they might not come back. "This is Admiral Taeyang to all ships," the voice came through her radio. "Today we take back our sky. Today we show the Vraxians that Earth belongs to humanity. All ships attack!" The fleet launched from hidden bases around the world, accelerating toward orbit. The Vraxian sensors detected them immediately, but the aliens were confused. These ships weren't military vessels. They were civilian craft, modified and armed, approaching in patterns that made no tactical sense. On the Vraxian supply station orbiting Earth, alarms sounded. "Commander, we have incoming ships. 37 vessels of various sizes. They're not following any standard attack formation." The station commander studied his screen. "They're amateurs flying civilian ships. Destroy them, but destroying them proved harder than expected." The human ships didn't fly like military vessels. They dodged and weaved unpredictably because their pilots weren't trained in standard combat maneuvers. They attacked from unexpected angles because they didn't know there were angles they weren't supposed to attack from. Their ignorance of proper tactics became their greatest advantage. Yuna's squadron swarmed around a Vraxian destroyer like angry insects. Their small ships were too fast for the destroyer's main guns, and there were too many of them for the point defense systems. One by one, they fired their weapons at the same weak point, a vulnerability Dr. Sunho's team had identified months ago. "Keep hitting that spot," Yuna shouted into her radio. "Don't let up." The destroyer's shields flickered and died. Human torpedoes, crude but effective, slammed into the exposed hull. The massive ship shuddered and began leaking atmosphere. Admiral Taeyang watched the battle from his command screen. 3 human ships had been destroyed, but they were winning. The Vraxians had never faced an enemy willing to use kamikaze tactics, false retreats, and coordinated swarm attacks. Every time the aliens adapted to one tactic, the humans switched to something else. "All ships focus on the supply station," Taeyang ordered. "That's our primary target." The supply station was the key to the entire Vraxian ground operation. Every weapon, every piece of ammunition, every bit of food for the soldiers below came through that station. Destroying it would cut off the ground forces from resupply. The station's defenses were formidable, but they were designed to stop military attacks following standard patterns. Earth's fleet attacked with chaos and desperation. Ships flew in from every direction. Some pilots deliberately drew fire to create openings for others. 3 ships loaded with explosives simply rammed the station's shields until they overloaded. The station commander realized too late what was happening. "All forces defend the supply depot. Don't let them through." But it was too late. A modified cargo ship, piloted by a volunteer who had already said goodbye to his family, crashed through the weakened shields and detonated inside the station's main hangar. The explosion triggered secondary explosions throughout the facility. Within minutes, the entire station was breaking apart. In orbit, Commander Vorath watched his supply line burn. "Get rescue ships to that station now. Save whoever you can." "Sir, we're detecting movement on the ground. Large-scale human military operations in all occupied cities." Vorath pulled up the ground situation display. His worst nightmare was happening. While his attention was focused on the space battle, the humans had launched a massive ground offensive. Without resupply from orbit, his ground forces couldn't hold out for long. On Earth, General Bora led the liberation of Sol. She had been a major when the war started, commanding a small unit. Now she commanded thousands, a mix of regular military and resistance fighters who had proven themselves in a year of constant combat. "All units advance," Bora ordered. "Hit them hard, hit them fast, and don't stop until the city is ours." The Vraxian forces in Sol were already demoralized. They had watched their supply station burn in orbit. They knew no help was coming. When the human forces attacked with everything they had, the alien defense crumbled. Lieutenant Jiwan's tunnel fighters emerged throughout the city, attacking from behind the Vraxian lines. Hana's drone team struck their communications and command posts. Dr. Sunho's sonic weapons disabled entire squads without firing a shot. The Vraxians had no answer for the coordinated assault. By nightfall, Sol was free. The Vraxian forces had either surrendered or retreated to defensive positions outside the city. Similar stories came from Tokyo, New York, London, Mumbai, and São Paulo. All across Earth, the humans were pushing the aliens back. In space, Captain Mina led a boarding team onto Commander Vorath's flagship. It was a desperate mission, but they had learned that the Vraxian command structure depended entirely on Vorath's leadership. Capture or kill him, and the entire invasion force would collapse. The boarding action was fierce. Vraxian soldiers fought to defend their commander, but the humans had surprise and determination on their side. Mina's team used every trick they had learned in a year of fighting. Smoke grenades to blind alien sensors, sonic weapons to disorient defenders. Captured Vraxian weapons turned against their makers. They fought through corridor after corridor, leaving wounded and dead behind them. But they kept pushing forward. Finally, they reached the command center. Commander Vorath stood alone, watching footage of his defeats on multiple screens. Soul burning. Tokyo freed. His supply station destroyed. His fleet scattered. Everything he had built over a year of fighting was falling apart. "Commander Vorath," Mina said, her weapon pointed at him. "Surrender. It's over." Vorath looked at her with tired eyes. "How? How did you defeat us?" "We are the Vraxian Empire. We have conquered 47 worlds." "You conquered worlds that didn't know how to fight back," Mina replied. "Earth is different. We learn, we adapt, and we never stop fighting for our home." Vorath studied the small human woman who had fought her way onto his ship. Behind her, exhausted human soldiers stood ready to fight to the last breath. He thought about his own soldiers, demoralized and defeated, surrendering across the planet below. He thought about the political storm waiting for him back home. "And he made a decision. I surrender," Vorath said quietly. "Not just myself. All Vraxian forces on and around Earth. The invasion is over." Mina lowered her weapon slightly. "Contact your commanders. Tell them to stand down. Tell them the war is over and Earth has won." As Vorath sent out the surrender orders, fighter pilot Yuna flew through the debris field of what had been the Vraxian supply station. Her squadron had lost half its members, but they had won. Around her, the remaining human ships regrouped, battered but victorious. On Earth, General Bora watched Vraxian soldiers laying down their weapons. Some were relieved the fighting was over. Others looked shocked that they had lost. All of them were exhausted. Dr. Sunho received the news in his laboratory, surrounded by the weapons and equipment he had helped develop. A year ago, he had been a civilian physicist. Now he was a hero who had helped save the world. Lieutenant Jiwan emerged from the tunnels into the streets of Seoul, seeing her city under human control again. People were crying and celebrating. The nightmare was finally over. Across Earth, humanity celebrated. They had faced an alien empire with superior technology and military might, and they had won. Not through superior firepower, but through determination, creativity, and the refusal to ever give up. The Vraxians had learned a lesson they would never forget. Earth was not to be conquered. The Vraxian dropships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. Commander Vorath watched from orbit as his ground forces landed in 6 major cities simultaneously: Seoul, Tokyo, New York, London, Mumbai, and São Paulo. The plan was simple: take the major cities, and the rest of the world would surrender. Lieutenant Jiwan stood in the subway tunnels beneath Seoul, listening to the explosions above. She had been a city engineer before the invasion. Now she was a soldier, leading 30 civilians who refused to run. They had weapons, but nothing that could match alien armor. What they had was knowledge. They knew every tunnel, every maintenance shaft, every forgotten passage in the entire city. "They're landing in the main square," someone said, checking a tablet connected to the city's camera system. The cameras still worked, even if everything else was falling apart. "Good," G1 replied. "Let them take the square. Let them think they control the surface. Down here, this is our world." The first Vraxian soldiers marched through Seoul's streets, their armor gleaming in the sun. They were tall, nearly 7 feet, with strength far beyond humans. Their weapons could punch through concrete. Nothing stood in their way. The city seemed empty, abandoned. Too easy. Then the ground beneath them exploded. Jiwan's team had spent weeks planting explosives in the sewers and tunnels. They used old construction materials, fertilizer, anything that could blow up. The Vraxians had sensors that could detect modern military explosives, but these were crude, primitive bombs. Their sensors ignored them. 10 soldiers fell into the crater. Before they could climb out, Jiwan's team attacked from maintenance tunnels using modified industrial tools as weapons. It wasn't pretty and it wasn't fair, but it worked. They grabbed 2 alien weapons and disappeared back into the tunnels before reinforcements arrived. In Busan, Dr. Sunho examined a captured Vraxian rifle. He was a physicist, not a soldier, but every scientist on Earth was now part of the war effort. The weapon was remarkable, using electromagnetic pulses instead of bullets. But as he studied it, he noticed something interesting. "The frequency is fixed," he muttered to his assistant. "Their weapons and shields all operate on the same electromagnetic frequency. If we can generate interference at that frequency, we might be able to disrupt them." "With what?" his assistant asked. "We don't have that kind of technology." Sunho looked around his lab. Then he smiled.
"Yes, we do."
"We just use it for different things." He grabbed a commercial microwave oven and started taking it apart. "If we modify these correctly, we can create the interference we need. It won't be powerful, but if we use enough of them together..." Within days, the modification plan spread across the global network. People around the world started converting household electronics into anti-alien weapons. It was crude science, but it worked. The Vraxian shields began flickering when humans attacked with their improvised devices. In Tokyo, Hana crouched on a rooftop, watching a Vraxian supply depot. She had been an Olympic gymnast before the invasion, representing her country in athletics. Now she used those same skills to move through the city unseen. With her was a team of 12 resistance fighters and a dozen commercial drones, the kind people used for photography. "Remember, we only get one shot at this," Hana whispered into her radio. "Everyone hits at the same time." They had attached homemade explosives to the drones, nothing sophisticated, just materials from hardware stores. The Vraxians had powerful defenses, but they were designed to stop missiles and artillery. Nobody had ever attacked them with toy drones before. 3, 2, 1, go. The drones swooped down from every direction. The Vraxian soldiers fired at them, but there were too many. Half the drones were destroyed, but the other half reached their targets. The explosions weren't large, but they were enough. The supply depot caught fire, and the ammunition inside started exploding. Hana and her team were already gone, melting into the city. Within hours, her tactics were shared on the internet. Resistance cells around the world started using drones in their attacks. The Vraxians began to fear the small flying machines more than tanks. Commander Vorath read the casualty reports with growing disbelief. In 1 week of ground combat, he had lost more soldiers than in his entire campaign on the last 3 planets combined. The humans were fighting in ways his military had never encountered. "They don't follow any rules of engagement," his tactical officer reported. "They attack from underground, from buildings, from the air using civilian equipment. Our soldiers don't know where the next attack will come from. They're cowards," Vorath said angrily, "hiding in tunnels and using civilian technology. No honor." "With respect, Commander, it's working. Our ground forces control the cities during the day. but at night the humans take them back. We can't secure any territory, and they're learning from every engagement. Each attack is more sophisticated than the last. Vorath slammed his fist on the console. This wasn't supposed to happen. Earth should have surrendered by now. Instead, the resistance was growing stronger. He sent a message back to the Vraxian Empire, requesting reinforcements. It was the first time in his career he had ever asked for help. Lieutenant Jiwan's tunnel network grew larger each day. More civilians joined the resistance, bringing skills the military never expected. Computer programmers hacked into the city's infrastructure, turning traffic lights and security systems into traps. Chefs taught soldiers how to make explosives from kitchen materials. Teachers organized intelligence networks using children to carry messages because the aliens didn't suspect them. We captured another prisoner, one of Jiwan's soldiers reported, dragging a wounded Vraxian into their underground base. Jiwan approached the alien soldier. He was young, probably his species equivalent of 19 or 20. His armor was damaged and he looked terrified. "Why are you afraid?" Jiwan asked in English, hoping the alien's translator would work. "You're all insane," the Vraxian replied. "You fight without any chance of winning. You throw away your lives for nothing." "This is our home," Jiwan said simply. "We're not throwing away our lives. We're defending them. That's something you'll never understand." Dr. Sunho's modifications became more sophisticated. His team developed portable devices that could temporarily shut down Vraxian shields. They weren't powerful enough to work on their large vehicles, but they worked perfectly on individual soldiers. The devices were cheap to make and easy to use. Within a month, every resistance cell had them. The Vraxians started losing soldiers in every encounter. Their superior armor didn't help when their shields failed. Their advanced weapons were useless when humans attacked from unexpected angles. Morale began to drop. In orbit, Commander Vorath received his reinforcements. 5,000 additional troops and enough supplies for 6 months. He sent them to the surface immediately, confident that overwhelming numbers would finally break the human resistance. But on Earth, Major Hyun smiled when he heard about the reinforcements. "Good," he told Captain Mina. "More soldiers mean more targets and more equipment for us to capture." They still don't understand. "Every soldier they send down here teaches us more about how to fight them." Mina nodded, studying the intelligence reports. 6 months of constant combat had taught humanity more about the Vraxians than the aliens had learned in 200 years of conquest. Every prisoner they captured provided information. Every weapon they studied revealed weaknesses. The humans were adapting faster than the Vraxians could respond. Hana led another successful raid, this time destroying a Vraxian communications hub. Dr. Sunho developed a new device that could temporarily jam alien sensors. Jiwan's tunnel network expanded to connect with resistance cells in other cities. Around the world, humans were learning, fighting, and refusing to surrender. The Vraxians had expected a quick victory. Instead, they found themselves trapped in an endless war against an enemy that learned from every mistake and adapted to every tactic. Commander Vorath realized with growing horror that Earth might not be conquerable after all. The war was far from over, but the humans had proven something important. They could fight back, they could learn, and they would never give up. The formal surrender took place 1 week after Commander Vorath gave the order to stand down. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered in Geneva to witness the moment that would change history forever. The Vraxian Empire, which had conquered 47 worlds without serious resistance, had been defeated by the species they had dismissed as primitive. Ambassador Kyung stood at the negotiating table, facing Commander Vorath and what remained of his command staff. She had been a diplomat before the war, specializing in international trade agreements. Now she was negotiating terms with an alien empire on behalf of all humanity. "The terms are simple," Kyung said calmly. "All Vraxian military forces will leave Earth immediately. You will pay reparations for the damage caused during the invasion. You will share your technology with us as part of those reparations, and you will carry a message back to your empire and to the entire galaxy. Earth is not to be invaded. Ever." Vorath looked at the document in front of him. A year ago, he would have laughed at such demands. Now he had no choice but to accept. "These terms are acceptable, but I must tell you, many of my soldiers cannot return home. The political situation in the Empire has changed. Those who survived this campaign are seen as failures. They will be punished or executed if they return. Kyung considered this. Around the room, human representatives whispered to each other. Finally, she spoke. Then they may request asylum on Earth. Those who surrender their weapons and agree to live in peace will be welcome. We are not monsters. We understand that your soldiers were following orders. This surprised Vorath. You would accept our people to live among you? After everything we did? We would, Kyung replied. Not because we forgive what happened, but because we choose to be better than our worst moments. That's something your empire never understood. The news that Earth would offer asylum to Vraxian soldiers shocked both species. Many humans protested, arguing that the aliens should not be rewarded for invading, but others, including many who had fought in the resistance, supported the decision. They're just soldiers, Lieutenant Jiwon said in an interview. Most of them didn't want this war. They were following orders from leaders who didn't care about their lives. If we punish them for being in the wrong place at the wrong time, we're no better than the empire that sent them here. Over the next month, 15,000 Vraxian soldiers chose to stay on Earth rather than return home. They were settled in designated areas, monitored but not imprisoned. Many humans were uncomfortable with alien neighbors, but others saw an opportunity. General Hyun, now promoted to head of Earth's Unified Defense Force, oversaw the demilitarization process. He watched Vraxian soldiers turning in their weapons, their armor, everything that had made them dangerous. Most looked relieved that the fighting was over. Do you hate us? A young Vraxian soldier asked Hyun through a translator. Hyun thought about his answer carefully. I hate what your empire did. I hate the destruction and death, but you? You're just a soldier who was sent to fight a war you didn't start. I can't hate you for that. The exchange of technology began immediately. Dr. Sunho worked with Vraxian scientists who had chosen to stay, combining human innovation with alien knowledge. The results were remarkable. Within months, they developed medical treatments that could cure diseases which had plagued humanity for centuries. They created new energy sources that could power cities without pollution. They designed ships that could travel between stars. This is amazing, Sunho said to his Vraxian colleague, a scientist named Corvin. Your people could have offered this knowledge peacefully. You didn't need to invade. Corvin looked ashamed. Our empire has forgotten how to cooperate. For 200 years, we have only known conquest. Your people reminded us that there is another way. Fighter pilot Yuna returned to civilian life, but flying passenger planes felt boring after space combat. She joined the new Earth Space Force, training the next generation of pilots. Many of her students were veterans like her, people who had learned to fly during the war and couldn't imagine doing anything else. Remember, she told her students, we won because we were willing to try things the enemy never expected. Don't just learn the standard tactics. Learn to think differently. That's what makes us human. Hana opened a school teaching resistance tactics and guerrilla warfare. Students came from around the world and from other species who had heard about Earth's victory. She taught them how small forces could defeat larger ones through creativity and determination. The key is never giving up, she explained to a class. The Vraxians had better weapons, better armor, better everything. But they didn't have our determination. They couldn't imagine a species that would fight for their home no matter the cost. Commander Vorath remained on Earth, technically a prisoner, but treated more like a guest. He spent his time writing a book about the invasion, analyzing every mistake the Vraxians made and every successful human tactic. The book, titled The Human Paradox, became required reading in military academies across the galaxy. In it, he wrote, "The humans of Earth taught the Vraxian Empire a lesson we should have learned long ago. Technology does not guarantee victory. Numbers do not guarantee success. The species that adapts fastest, that learns from every defeat, that refuses to accept the impossible, that species will always win. We came to Earth expecting another easy conquest. Instead, we found a species that showed us what we had become, arrogant, predictable, and weak. The humans were never the primitive species we thought them to be. They were simply waiting for a reason to show the galaxy their true strength. 5 years after the invasion ended, Earth had become a major power in the galaxy. The United Earth Coalition maintained a defense fleet protecting not just their own world, but several allied systems. Many of the ships were crewed by both humans and Vraxians working together, the former enemies now united by mutual respect. Ambassador Kyung led Earth's diplomatic mission to the galaxy. She negotiated treaties, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts, Other species who had been conquered by the Vraxians looked to Earth as an example of what resistance could achieve. "How did you do it?" an alien ambassador asked her once. "How did one planet defeat an empire?" Kyung smiled. "We didn't see ourselves as one planet. We saw ourselves as billions of individuals who all wanted the same thing, to protect our home. Every person on Earth became part of the defense, whether they were soldiers, scientists, engineers, or civilians. The Vraxians thought they were fighting an army. They were actually fighting an entire world." General Hyun retired from military service and wrote his memoirs. The book became a bestseller across multiple star systems. He titled it simply, "We Were Never Weak, We Were Just Waiting." In the final chapter, he wrote, "The invasion was the worst thing that ever happened to Earth. Millions died. Cities were destroyed. But it was also the moment when humanity finally united. We stopped seeing ourselves as different nations, different cultures, different people. We saw ourselves as one species defending one home. That unity made us stronger than any weapon, any technology, any empire. The Vraxians didn't just lose a war. They lost to an idea. The idea that a species fighting for their home is unbeatable." Dr. Sun Ho continued his research, now with resources from across the galaxy. The medical advances he developed saved billions of lives, both human and alien. When asked about his greatest achievement, he always gave the same answer: teaching the galaxy that cooperation produces better results than conquest. 10 years after the invasion, Earth's defense forces detected another alien fleet approaching. Immediately, alarm sounded across the planet. Had someone else decided to try conquering Earth? But when the fleet arrived, they didn't attack. Instead, they broadcast a message: "We are the Kelton Federation. We come in peace. We seek an alliance with Earth and request your help in defending our worlds from aggression. We have read about your victory over the Vraxians. We want to learn from you." General Bora, now in command of Earth's military, smiled as she read the message. "Send them coordinates for a meeting. Tell them we'll be happy to help. And make sure they understand. We don't conquer. We cooperate. That's the human way." Across the galaxy, the story of Earth spread. The small blue planet that had defeated the mighty Vraxian Empire became a legend. Young species facing their own threats looked to humanity for inspiration. Older species reconsidered their military doctrines. The idea of conquest became less appealing when everyone knew about the species that had taught the Vraxians such a painful lesson. In a small apartment in Seoul, Lieutenant Jiwon lived a quiet life. She worked as a city engineer again, rebuilding what the war had destroyed. Sometimes tourists, both human and alien, would recognize her and ask for her story. She always told them the same thing: "I was just one person doing what needed to be done. So were millions of others." That's the real lesson of the invasion. It's not about individual heroes or advanced weapons. It's about what happens when every person in a civilization decides to fight for what they believe in. The Vraxians learned that lesson the hard way. I hope no one else needs to learn it the same way. The war was over. Earth had won. And the galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.